once we build and build and build enough emotionally driven thought, through the momentous building of that, doors begin to open. The universe begins to swing doors open for us that are not always obvious. Things that are, that are much more kind of out of the way, that are more subdued as to how it happens. And people and things and events and items start coming our direction through means that seem pretty much quote unquote normal, things that we think of on a daily basis as to how they happen, like we run into the right person someplace, or we come across a book or a recording or a program, a DVD, something that starts changing our lives, something that starts getting us to look at something a little differently, or that gives us a clue, or that gives us some instructions that maybe we were needing to say, okay, well, now I can go this direction. Usually those things show up, while we're in the bookstore and we kind of get a feeling, well, I'm going to go over here in this section. Or they show up while we're out and about and just interacting throughout our normal circumstances of our daily activities in our daily life. We don't think of them in terms of something magically coming out of thin air for us, or something popping into existence right before our eyes. Those types of means are how the universe usually does things for us. But that is because, again, it's about our beliefs. It's about how we can accept something. It's how most of us wouldn't be able to accept something appearing right before our eyes. But that's exactly what happened to me in the last 3 weeks. I've been, as I say, working with this information for quite a while now. I consistently think abundant thoughts. While I'm not overly concerned with financial gain, it's not something that it's, a major priority. I do care about financial abundance. I do, want to consistently be bringing in abundance into my life. I'm not money hungry, money driven primarily, but I do care about bringing in abundance, financially speaking, to be taken care of, to be free, to continue pursuing my passions and things of that nature. So because that is an intention that I continue to set out there to the universe, and I have worked in developing my beliefs and my knowledge that people are able to manifest things from thin air, while there's certain degrees in even my believability about that, I'm continuing to tear down the old walls and have my own paradigm shift, even about something such as instantaneous manifestation and materialization. And I actually had some money manifestations coming out of thin air. They weren't coming through the channels that I spoke of before that we think of as being more normal. And the value of the money that came my direction is not necessarily what I want to point out here, because it has more to do with the symbolic means of the money that came my direction, as opposed to the actual cash amount value of the money. The first experience that I had, first time it happened, as I said, it's been about 3 weeks since the first time. It happened in my home, right here in my house where I'm doing this podcast from. And I'd actually been running some errands with my mom earlier in the day. She and I stopped back by my house. She and I were the only ones here. I went into the kitchen. I was standing at the kitchen sink in the process of washing my hands, and then I reached for the towel, started drying my hands. I could see my mom out of the corner of my eye. She was standing in the living room. It's an open floor space between the kitchen and the living room. Her back was turned to me. She was not moving at all. I was completely aware of what she was doing, completely aware of my movement. I had no change in my pockets that day. Primarily, I don't carry change. And that day was definitely one of those days where I was not carrying change. As I was drying my hands, it was completely silent in the house. There was no noise. You couldn't hear anything dropping, falling. And out of the corner of my eye, the opposite end of the kitchen, all that is at that end of the kitchen is a wall and a window. A couple of windows there side by side, actually, to be specific. About 3 or 4 feet away from me, I noticed it coming from that direction, and it was an object that was rolling on its edge, as if it was rolling, turning like a wheel on edge, and rolling right directly towards me. As I said, about 3 or 4 feet away is when I became aware of it out of the corner of my eye. I caught my attention, turned around to face it. As I turned around, not my whole body, just my head to face it, it hit my right shoe, bounced off of my shoe, sputtered around a little bit, dropped to the floor. That's when I looked down, and it was a penny. It was a penny that had rolled from some place in that general direction where the wall or the window was located at. I didn't see it manifest into the physical environment here before my eyes. However, I know that my mom didn't do it. I know that I wasn't responsible for doing it. I even went back and tried to test it. I dropped pennies off of myself. I dropped a penny from anywhere on my body. I'd set it like out on the corner of my pocket. I'd set it in the towel, and I know nothing fell out of the towel. And every time I did that, it rolled away from me, or it just fell flat right in front of me. This was coming out from a direction where no one was at. No one was there. All I can say is that it had an origin that materialized basically from thin air. That experience in and of itself is enough to, really make you stand back and scratch your head. Even though I'm aware of all this information and how things work, at least in terms of applying it, I still was kind of awestruck by that. However, I kind of sort of put it out of my mind, you could say, I guess, until about a week and a half later, when another penny made its way into my experience in a way that I've never come across before. This time I was down at my parents' house, and my dad and I were out in the yard doing some yard work. We were picking up brush, leaves, that type of thing, putting them into trash bags to get them bagged up. And my dad had been wearing a pair of gloves out in the yard. We had been outside for about 2 hours, hour and a half to 2 hours. This pair of gloves was practically brand new. The lining was not torn. And he was in the process of taking them off and putting them on and doing lots of things with them that day. He didn't come across anything in those gloves. He was using them, and nothing was going on with the gloves outside of just his normal use of picking up trash, picking up leaves, picking up branches, putting it into the bags. And I also should say his hands are a little bit larger than mine, so they're going to reach into areas of the gloves that maybe my hands aren't quite capable of reaching into. So he would have definitely become aware of the coin. I told him there was one last pile to finish up. I told him to go ahead and go in the house and I'd finish it up if he wanted to. So I borrowed the gloves from him, put them on, was using them for a couple of minutes. Nothing. I didn't feel anything inside the gloves at all. And I didn't put my hand in my pockets. I didn't have loose change on me that day either. And I didn't put my hands down inside the garbage bags where there could have been something that fell inside the gloves. In fact, the bag I was working with was completely empty as I started to put leaves and branches into it. So in the process of working with this last pile, I felt something on my thumb. It didn't fall. It didn't feel like it shuffled or came loose from someplace within the glove. The way I describe it is, in one instance, it wasn't there, and in the next it was. And basically, it was just balancing on the end of my thumb. I took the glove off, and it was a penny. And my jaw dropped, I think, at that time because of the experience that I had in my kitchen. But before I jumped to any conclusions, I wanted to check with my dad. So I went in and I spoke with him, and he definitely said there was nothing in the glove. He didn't feel anything in the glove, and he didn't place anything in the glove. And the same was true for me upon initially putting the glove over my right hand. There was nothing in it. And I had enough movement going on with my hands, bending down, picking things up, that I would have felt the penny in the glove. And I certainly would have felt it sliding around in the glove, because after the fact, I stuck a penny in the glove and stuck my hand inside it to try it. And there was no way that I could move my hand without feeling that penny wherever I stuck it in the glove. It would either immediately bump up against my fingers, or it would slide down my palm inside the glove. So all I can say on this instance as well is that the penny came from a means of manifesting from thin air, essentially. I double-checked the lining in the gloves. Nothing is torn, and there's not anything torn in that right glove at all. And there's no pouches, there's no way that a penny would have been in that glove any other way outside of the ways that I've described here. And one more thing before I end this podcast, I would like to say that the whole point of creating our reality and the law of attraction is, yes, it brings us things and it brings us changes and it brings us amazing benefits into our lives. However, the key in all of this, and to not forget that, is it's about what it can do for us internally, about the connection that we feel to one another. It's about the understanding of unity. It's about the understanding that we are the creators of our life experience. It's about the understanding of how it can make us feel more than it is what it can give us. Yes, we deserve all those things. Yes, they're rightfully ours. However, primarily, it's all centered in finding happiness, finding joy, and continuing that experience and understanding that. And that does it for this fourth Wind of the Soul podcast. I'd like to thank you for taking time out of your busy day to join me for this recording. I hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, have a great week and take care of yourself.